Finding a lost camera at a disaster site feels like opening a time capsule from a nightmare. Teams working in extreme environments often find recording devices that have survived for years in the mud, snow, or rubble. There are 20 instances where cameras were pulled from the most terrifying places you can imagine.
A diver finds a GoPro camera at the bottom of a lake. Incredibly, the card inside the camera wasn't destroyed, and he was able to recover several videos.
The photos inside are unbelievable because they document events that no one was supposed to witness. From high mountain peaks to the depths of silent shipwrecks, these recovered frames tell the stories of people who stood at the edge of the world and pressed the shutter one last time. Glacial lens recoveries. One of the most intense recoveries ever recorded happened on the slopes of Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in the Americas. Back in the 1970s, a group of climbers vanished while they were attempting to reach the summit. For decades, their story was a mystery that haunted the climbing community. However, 30 years later, melting glaciers revealed a camera that had been perfectly preserved in the ice. When the film was developed, it showed the group smiling at the start of their journey. But as the photos progressed, the expressions on their faces changed. The final shots showed a world of blinding white snow and dark, jagged rocks, with the climbers looking exhausted and thin. It is a key detail that these photos helped families finally understand what happened during those final hours in the thin air. This was not just a mountain climb, it was a struggle against nature at 22,000 feet above sea level. There are still many rumors on the air about the images found on cameras after the 2004 tsunami. In one famous case, a camera belonged to a couple who were enjoying a peaceful morning on a beach in Thailand. The photos start with beautiful waves and clear blue skies, but here is the catch. The ocean suddenly pulled back, exposing hundreds of yards of seafloor that had never been seen before. The couple, not knowing what was coming, took photos of the strange sight. The very last frame shows a massive wall of water, 30 feet high, bearing down on the shore. Nobody expected this to happen, but the camera survived inside a waterproof bag, providing a haunting look at the moments before the world changed for thousands of people. The camera was found by a beachcomber months later, and the images were eventually returned to the families. In the world of storm chasing, the risks are even higher than on a mountaintop. During the 2013 El Reno tornado, several experienced chasers found themselves trapped by a storm that was over 2 miles wide.
We got there plenty early and sat in a parking lot of a convenience store and watched all of the storm chasers and the Doppler radar trucks and everyone who is anyone driving around town waiting for the storm to fire.
A camera recovered from one of the vehicles showed the sky turning a bruised shade of purple and green. The footage and photos were unbelievable because they showed the wind tearing apart structures at speeds of over 200 miles per hour. What most people do not realize is that the tornado changed direction so fast that the chasers had no time to escape. The recovered images are now used to study how these massive storms behave, but they also serve as a grim reminder of the power of nature. The camera itself was found in a ditch, half buried in mud, yet the digital memory card was still perfectly functional. Another terrifying find comes from the deep caves of the French Alps. Explorers found a digital camera wedged into a narrow crack in the rock, hundreds of feet below the surface. The photos on the card showed a solo hiker navigating tunnels that were barely wide enough for a human body. As the photos go on, you can see the light from the hiker's headlamp getting dimmer and dimmer. The final image is a blurry shot of a vertical drop that the hiker likely did not see in the dark. It is not that simple, though, as the camera was found in a section of the cave that is known for flooding during heavy rains. This suggests the hiker might have been trying to climb higher to escape rising water, only to lose their gear in the process. High-altitude recoveries are always some of the most emotional because they feel so personal. On Mount Everest, cameras are often found near the gear of those who did not make it down. One such camera, found at 27,000 feet, captured the sunset from the roof of the world. The photo is beautiful, but it is also terrifying when you realize the person who took it was out of oxygen and miles away from safety. These cameras are often found by Sherpas who are cleaning the mountain, and the photos are sent back to families as a way to provide closure. And get this, the memory cards in these cameras can survive for years in the sub-zero temperatures. keeping the images perfectly preserved. Basically, the cold acts like a freezer for human history. One camera was found near an active volcanic crater in Hawaii. It belonged to a photographer who wanted to get the perfect shot of a lava lake. The photos on the device show the glowing orange magma bubbling just a few feet away. In the final frames, you can see the ground starting to crumble under the heat. The camera was recovered by a robotic drone that was sent into the area months later. The lens was partially melted, but the images inside were still clear. They showed the raw power of the Earth in a way that very few people ever get to see. It is one of the most overlooked aspects of nature photography. The line between a great shot and a disaster is very thin. Then there are the cameras found in deep ocean graveyards. These are spots where the ocean currents naturally deposit debris from all over the world. A camera was found on a remote beach in the Pacific that had traveled thousands of miles across the water. The photos on it showed a small fishing boat in the middle of a massive storm. The waves were 40 feet high, tossing the boat like a toy in a bathtub. What most people do not realize is that these small vessels often have no way to call for help when they are out in the deep ocean. The photos captured the sheer scale of the sea and how small we are compared to it. The camera was covered in barnacles and sea salt, but the story it told was clear. Explorers are constantly finding gear in spots where the laws of nature seem to break. Nuclear ruin, snapshots. The exclusion zone around Chernobyl is one of the most haunting places on the entire planet. For decades, it has been a ghost town where nature is slowly taking back the concrete buildings. Urban explorers often sneak into the zone to see the ruins, and sometimes they leave things behind in their hurry to exit. A group recently found a camera in an old kindergarten building in the city of Pripyat. The camera had been sitting there for years, and the film inside had been damaged by the lingering radiation. When the photos were processed, they looked like ghostly shadows. You could see the rusted Ferris wheel and the abandoned gas masks scattered on the floor, but they were covered in strange white orbs and streaks. A lot of people are confused about these artifacts, thinking they are paranormal, but it is actually the radiation attacking the film directly. But here's the deal. Not every camera in Chernobyl was left by an explorer. Some were abandoned by the original residents who had to flee in 1986. A camera found in a kitchen cupboard of an apartment showed a half-eaten meal and a birthday cake on the table. The photos on the roll were of a family party that happened just hours before the sirens went out. It is a key detail that these photos capture the very last moments of normalcy for a city that would never be lived in again. Seeing these ordinary lives frozen in time makes the empty streets of the zone feel even more terrifying. The camera was a simple Soviet model, but it held a wealth of history that was nearly lost to the dust. Moving away from the radiation, we find the plague island of Poveglia in Italy. This place was once used to isolate people with the plague, and later it became an asylum for those with mental illnesses. It is hands down one of the most forbidden spots in Europe. A camera recovered from the overgrown ruins of the hospital showed photos of long, dark hallways and rotting medical equipment. The crazy part is that the person who owned the camera took a series of photos of a shadow in the corner of a room. In each frame, the shadow seems to be closer to the lens. Many are not seeing the truth here, but locals believe the island is cursed, and these photos only add to the legend. The island remains closed to the public, and anyone caught there faces heavy fines. One of the most overlooked aspects of these recoveries is the chemical damage that occurs over time. On a small island used for testing gas masks during the war, a camera was found inside a rusted bunker. The lens was clouded by chemical residue, but the photos showed rows upon rows of masks hanging from the ceiling like eyeless faces. The photographer had captured the heavy fog that often rolls off the ocean and into the bunkers. It creates a scene that looks like something out of a horror movie. Everyone is obsessed with the idea of ghosts, but the real terror is the history of what humans did in these hidden labs. The camera was found by a team of historians who were mapping the site for a documentary. In the abandoned military sites of the American desert, cameras have captured things that the government would rather keep secret. One device was found near a restricted fence line in Nevada. The photos showed strange lights in the sky that did not move like airplanes or helicopters, The camera had been stepped on and crushed, but the memory card was still readable. It is not that simple, though, because the lights could be experimental flares or drones. Still, the images of the dark desert being lit up by an unknown source are enough to make anyone wonder what is really going on behind those fences. The area is heavily patrolled, and finding a camera there is rare. The desert heat can be just as destructive as the cold of the mountains. A camera found in the Mojave showed a hiker wandering further and further into the dunes. The photos show the water bottle getting emptier and the sun getting lower. The final shot is of a mirage that looks like a lake on the horizon. This is a key detail because it shows how the mind can play tricks when the body is failing. The camera was the only thing found for miles, and it tells a story of a journey that should have never been taken alone. It was found by a group of off-roaders who were exploring the dunes during the winter months. There are also cameras found in abandoned mining towns like Tonopah. These places were once bustling with activity, but now they are just rotting wood and rusted metal. A camera found in the bottom of a dry well showed photos of the tunnels deep underground. The images were dark, but the flash revealed skeletal remains that had been there for over 100 years. It is not that simple to say how the camera got there, but it seems someone was trying to document the history of the mine before they lost their gear. The silence of these ghost towns is heavy, and the photos found there are a reminder of the people who were left behind. There is a certain type of dread that only comes from seeing the world through a dead man's lens. Through ocean floor records. The deep sea is a world of crushing pressure and total darkness that humans were never meant to enter. When a camera is lost in the ocean, the chances of finding it are almost zero. However, remotely operated vehicles have managed to recover gear from some of the world's most famous shipwrecks. A camera found in the debris field of a luxury liner that sank in the Atlantic showed the interior of a cabin before the water rushed in. The photos were still visible on the digital card because it had been sealed in a pressurized case. They showed people in fine clothes laughing and dancing. It is a key detail that these images provide a human face to a tragedy that has become a legend over the last century. Seeing the velvet chairs and crystal glasses through a lens covered in silt is truly unbelievable. And get this, some of the most terrifying photos come from the ocean graveyards where currents deposit debris from all over the world. A camera was found on a remote beach in the Pacific that had traveled thousands of miles across the water. The photos on it showed a small fishing boat in the middle of a massive storm. The waves were 40 feet high, tossing the boat like a toy in a bathtub. What most people do not realize is that these small vessels often have no way to call for help when they are out in the deep ocean. The photos captured the sheer scale of the sea and how small we are compared to it. The camera was covered in barnacles and sea salt, but the story it told was clear. It had survived a journey across half the planet to tell its tale. In the Gulf of Mexico, divers found a camera near an underwater cave system. These caves are notoriously dangerous, and many divers have lost their lives trying to map them. The camera belonged to a diver who had entered a section called the chimney. The photos showed the narrow passage getting smaller and smaller until the diver's fins were kicking up silt, making it impossible to see. The final frames are just a cloud of gray dust with a faint glow of a flashlight in the distance. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of cave diving. Once you lose visibility, you lose your way. The camera was found by a search team that was looking for the diver weeks later. Deep-sea submersibles have also lost cameras in the Mariana Trench. One of these was recovered by a follow-up mission months later. The photos showed creatures that have never been seen by human eyes. They were bioluminescent monsters with teeth like needles and translucent skin. One of the most unbelievable images was of a massive shadow passing over the submersible. It was much larger than any known whale or shark. There are still many rumors on the air about what lives at 36,000 feet below the surface, and these photos only fuel the fire. Basically, the trench is like another planet right here on Earth. Another camera was found in the wreckage of a military plane that crashed into the sea during a training exercise. The photos showed the cockpit and the instrument panel. The crazy part is that the gauges showed the plane was functioning perfectly right up until it hit the water. This has led to many theories about pilot disorientation or something external causing the crash. The images are a key detail for investigators, but they are also a chilling look at the final seconds of a high-speed flight. The camera was recovered from a depth of 2,000 feet by a specialized diving team. One of the most unsettling finds was a camera found inside a sunken container ship. The ship had been carrying thousands of cars when it tipped over during a storm. The photos on the camera showed the cargo hold shifting. You could see the massive chains snapping and the cars smashing into each other like toys. The person who took the photos was likely a crew member trying to document the damage before the ship went down. The scale of the destruction inside the ship is something that a lot of people are confused about until they see the actual pictures. It shows that even the biggest ships are no match for a rough sea. Basically, the ocean is a giant vault that occasionally gives up its secrets when we least expect it. Every camera recovered from the deep is a miracle of technology and luck. They show us a world of ship corpses and glowing monsters that most of us will never see in person. The images are often blurry or discolored by the water, but they hold a power that clear photos can never match. They are a record of the moments when things went wrong in the most remote places on the planet. The dark water holds more than just shipwrecks and fish. It holds memories that were supposed to be drowned. Secret society evidence. There are islands in this world where outsiders are strictly forbidden, and the law does not reach. North Sentinel Island is one of those places. A camera was once found floating in a waterproof box near the shore of a neighboring island. It is believed to have belonged to a curious traveler who got too close to the forbidden shore. The photos on the card showed the dense jungle of the island from a distance. As the boat got closer, the photos showed people on the beach holding bows and arrows. The final shot is a blurry image of an arrow flying toward the lens. This is a key detail that shows why the government keeps people away from the island for their own safety. The camera was the only thing that made it back to tell the story. Snake Island in Brazil is another place where no human is allowed to step foot for more than a few hours. It is home to thousands of golden lancehead vipers, which are some of the most venomous snakes on Earth. A research team left a stationary camera on the island to monitor the wildlife. When they returned to fetch it, the camera was covered in bite marks. The photos showed snakes crawling over the lens and fighting each other for space. One image showed a snake staring directly into the camera with its mouth open. The crazy part is that there were so many snakes in the background that you could not see the ground. It is hands down one of the most terrifying places for anyone with a fear of reptiles. The researchers have to wear special suits just to walk a few feet on the island. In the frozen forests of Siberia, a camera was found in an abandoned campsite that dated back to the 1950s. This find was linked to a famous incident where a group of hikers vanished under mysterious circumstances. The photos showed the group setting up their tent in the snow. They looked happy and healthy at the time. But the final photo on the roll was taken from inside the tent, looking out into the darkness. You can see a faint, blurry shape in the trees that does not look like a bear or a wolf. Nobody expected this to happen, but the hikers fled their tent in the middle of the night without their shoes. The photos are the only evidence of their final night in the wilderness. Hikers in the national parks of the United States also leave behind cameras that tell strange tales. One device was found in a dense thicket of trees in the Pacific Northwest. The photos showed a family hiking on a well-marked trail. Then, the photos changed to shots of the deep woods where there were no trails. The hikers seemed to be taking pictures of strange symbols carved into the bark of the trees. The final image is of a tall, dark figure standing behind a tree about 50 yards away. A lot of people is confused about whether these photos are real or a hoax, but the camera was found miles away from where the hiker was supposed to be. It is one of those cases that keeps investigators awake at night. One of the most overlooked aspects of missing persons cases is the gear they leave behind. A camera found in the Australian outback showed a traveler trying to fix a flat tire. The photos show the sun beating down and the red sand stretching out in every direction. As the day goes on, the traveler takes photos of their GPS device, which shows they are hundreds of miles from the nearest town. The final shot is of the horizon as the sun sets, showing how vast and empty the desert really is. It is not that simple to survive in that kind of heat without water, and the camera is a silent witness to the struggle. The vehicle was found weeks later, but the traveler was never located. Even in the most modern cities, There are terrifying places like abandoned asylums and underground tunnels. A camera found in the New York City subway tunnels showed a world that most commuters never see. The photos showed hidden rooms filled with old furniture and strange graffiti. The person who took the photos seemed to be following a trail of lights that led deeper into the earth. The final photo shows a door with a heavy iron bolt that had been ripped off from the inside, and that is putting it lightly, because the tunnels go on for miles and hold secrets that the city has forgotten. The photographer was never identified, but their camera was found by a track worker. The truth is that these cameras provide a bridge between our world and the places we fear to go. They show us that the world is much larger and more dangerous than we like to admit. Whether it is a ghost in the ruins of Chernobyl or a monster in the deep ocean, these images stay with us. They make us wonder what else is out there, waiting to be found by someone with a camera and enough courage to press the shutter. We may never know the full story behind every photo, but the mystery is what keeps us looking for answers. Every recovered device is a piece of a puzzle that we may never finish. Interdimensional camera finds. There is a growing belief among some researchers that these lost cameras are not just recording accidents, but are actually capturing glitches in our reality. One of the most wild theories suggests that certain terrifying places, like the deep woods or ancient ruins, act as portals to other dimensions. A camera found in an old abandoned hospital in England contained photos that seemed to support this. The images showed the same hallway, but in each photo, the furniture and wallpaper were different. In one shot, the building looked brand new, and in the next, it was a crumbling ruin. It is not that simple to explain this with lighting or editing, especially when the camera was an old film model from the 1990s. Some people believe the photographer accidentally stepped into a time slip while they were taking pictures. And get this, there are theories that our entire world is a simulation, and these terrifying places are where the code starts to break down. This would explain why cameras found in areas like the Bermuda Triangle or the Nevada desert often contain corrupted files that show impossible landscapes. One recovered camera showed a photo of the ocean where the water seemed to be square instead of wavy. Another showed a mountain that was perfectly mirrored in the sky. What most people do not realize is that these anomalies are often dismissed as digital errors. But what if they are actually showing the true nature of our world? The crazy part is that these images are only found in places where humans rarely go, as if the simulation only fixes the errors when we are watching. Another wild theory involves the idea of shadow people, or interdimensional beings that are invisible to the human eye, but can be captured by a camera lens. Many of the photos found in abandoned asylums or haunted forests show dark humanoid shapes that do not have a source. Some researchers believe these beings live in a frequency that is just outside of our vision. When a camera flash goes off, it might catch a glimpse of them for a fraction of a second. This is why so many recovered cameras show figures standing just out of reach. It is a key detail that these photos are often the only evidence we have of these visitors. Whether they are ghosts or something from another planet, they seem to be attracted to places of tragedy and fear. Are these recovered images proof of a glitch in our reality? Or is there a much simpler explanation we are missing? Tell us your wildest theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable mysteries.